There's a certain kind of person who is just different. They walk into a room and almost instantly something feels off to them. Nobody's raised their voice. There's no drama happening, but their brain has already finished scanning everything. An avoided glance, a smile that's just a little too forced, a sentence that sounds completely normal but feels strangely empty underneath. A lot of people think this kind of awareness is a gift, a kind of superpower, and honestly, in some ways, it is. But here's the truth that doesn't get said enough. This sharpness is also a trap, because their brain doesn't have an off switch. They can't just enjoy a moment and let it go. They take it home with them. They pick it apart. They replay it again and again, turning one small silence into an entire universe of thoughts. If you know someone like this, or if you're someone like this, you already know it's not easy. This isn't just being smart or perceptive. It's constantly noticing the hidden layer underneath everything, the layer most people walk right past without even seeing it. It can feel like a gift, but it's also exhausting in a way that quietly drains you day after day. So today, I want to actually unpack this, why some people end up this way, and more importantly, how they can stop being swallowed by their own mind. Let's start at the beginning. Why does someone become this aware in the first place? Psychologists generally point to two different paths, but nothing is wrong with them. They're not broken. They're just carrying a kind of intelligence that survival built into them. The shield that once protected them never really came off. It just became part of their skin. So when that shield carries into adult life, what does it actually look like day to day? The first sign is living in constant analysis mode. This is the clearest one, and honestly, the most exhausting. For most people, a conversation is just a conversation. But for someone like this, their mind is always quietly running a second equation underneath it. Here's a small, very real example. Their boss sends a Slack message at 4 p.m. Come see me for a minute later. For most people, that's just a meeting. For them, the second they read it, a wave of tension shows up out of nowhere. They notice something in the wording, a kind of invisible coldness. They start questioning themselves immediately. Is my boss upset with me? Did I mess something up? They don't just hear the words people say. They catch the 3-second pause before someone compliments their shirt. They notice the tiny shift in someone's breathing. Part of this comes down to something called the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for reflection and self-referential thinking. In most people, it mostly kicks in when they're daydreaming or resting. But in people who are this aware, it's almost always running in the background, which means their mind never fully stops interpreting and analyzing. So half of them is there, nodding, smiling, holding a coffee, present in the conversation. But the other half is quietly taking notes, comparing details, running the numbers. And because of that, their mind almost never actually rests. They can sit in an office all day and come home completely drained, because their brain just finished running an invisible marathon nobody else could see. That analysis doesn't just point outward, though. Eventually, it turns inward, too. And that's the second sign, hyper-self-awareness. In psychology, there's a term for thinking about your own thinking, metacognition. Everyone has this ability to some degree. But for this kind of person, it's a switch that never turns off. They don't just feel an emotion. They monitor it as it happens. The pattern usually goes like this. An emotion shows up, then immediately gets analyzed, then judged. They're walking outside and suddenly feel sad. Instead of just letting themselves feel that, sadly, for a second, they fold their arms mentally and start interrogating it. Why am I sad right now? Does this even make sense? I have a good job. I should feel grateful. So why do I feel empty? What's wrong with me for feeling this way? Even joy doesn't get to just exist. They're at a dinner, they laugh at a joke, and a half-second later, part of their mind floats up near the ceiling and starts evaluating the laugh itself. Was that too loud? Did that sound a little fake? It's like dancing while constantly staring at your own reflection to fix your posture. You might not miss a step, but you completely lose the feeling of the dance. The depth of their awareness keeps growing, but their ability to just be present quietly disappears. And when that internal camera runs long enough, it leads to a third sign, losing innocence in relationships. This level of awareness lets them see the backstage of human behavior. Psychologically, it's connected to something called theory of mind, basically a strong, almost automatic read on what other people are actually thinking or wanting. They notice that people don't always say what they mean. A coworker brings them coffee and compliments a project they just finished. Instead of just enjoying that, part of their brain immediately starts scanning. What does this person actually want from me? Are they hoping I'll do them a favor later? They start to realize kindness sometimes comes with strings attached. That affection can sometimes be a kind of investment. That a man's confidence on a date might just be a curtain hiding his fear of being rejected. This creates a quiet kind of loss. Not the loss of childhood innocence, the loss of relational innocence. The simple ability to just trust the surface of what someone says without digging underneath it. So a compliment always seems to carry a few extra layers. An apology never quite feels finished, because part of them suspects the person is just trying to defuse the moment, not actually taking responsibility. A promise feels a little fragile. They don't become bitter about it. They just become careful. And sometimes, even in a crowded room, they feel completely alone because nobody else around them seems to be seeing the same layer of truth they are. And that layer of truth doesn't stay logical for long. It sinks into how they feel. Which brings us to the fourth sign, empathy that never switches off. For them, empathy isn't something they choose to use when a friend is upset. It's a state that's just always on. They can walk into a meeting where nobody has said a single word and still feel the tension sitting between two coworkers. Psychologically, this starts as cognitive empathy, basically understanding what someone else is feeling. But for someone this aware, it doesn't stop there. It crosses into emotional empathy, where they don't just understand the feeling, they actually absorb it. They live inside it, almost like it's their own. This connects to something in the brain called mirror neurons. When they watch someone express an emotion, those neurons fire as if they're feeling it themselves. For most people, that's a quick flicker of empathy. For someone overly aware, it becomes full absorption. Someone on the bus next to them taps their foot nervously, and suddenly their own heart starts racing too. A friend talks about their divorce for 20 minutes, and that grief sits in their chest for 3 days afterward. What does that turn them into? The emotional regulator for everyone around them. They instinctively know how to soften their voice, choose the right words, calm a room down. People love being around them because they feel deeply understood. But the cost is real. They quietly become a container for everyone else's emotional weight. And at the end of the day, almost nobody stops to notice that the person who always understands everyone else also needs someone to understand them. Those feelings they absorb from everyone don't just disappear, either. They go somewhere, usually straight into the body, which is the fifth sign when awareness turns physical and starts to feel like anxiety. There's a concept in science called interoception. Basically, your ability to sense what's happening inside your own body. People who are this aware tend to have an extremely sensitive version of that system. They drink 1 espresso. Their heart beats a little faster, totally normal, just caffeine. But for their nervous system, the brain notices the faster heartbeat, pulls up its old records, and basically shouts, "Fast heartbeat means danger. We might be having a panic attack." So ordinary physical sensations get blown up into warning signals. And that creates a brutal loop. A normal body sensation shows up. The brain misreads it as danger. The body releases stress hormones like cortisol, which creates even more physical sensations. Round and round. The result is their body is basically running an emergency broadcast on a loop, even when absolutely nothing is wrong. And when both the emotional and physical signals start overwhelming them like this, the mind goes looking for one last way to find some order. That's usually when awareness quietly shifts from simply observing the world into trying to control it. Not control over other people. Something quieter than that. A kind of internal defense system. There's an unspoken belief running underneath it. If I can predict every possible variable, I won't be caught off guard by pain. Understanding becomes a kind of armor. They believe that if they can see disappointment coming far enough in advance, it won't be able to knock them down when it finally arrives. So their mind runs constant simulations in the background. What if that person suddenly pulls away? What if everything I've worked so hard to build just disappears tomorrow? If the worst thing actually happens, how do I make sure I don't fall apart? This is what psychologists call analysis paralysis. They get stuck inside a maze of their own assumptions, living through 10 different imagined futures, dissecting every possible risk, while the actual present moment hasn't even happened yet. And that constant vigilance is exactly what keeps them from ever fully showing up for their own life. In trying so hard to stay ahead of pain, they quietly step outside of the moment they're actually in, instead of living inside the mess and beauty of life as it happens. They start managing it like a high-risk project. Protection slowly replaces presence, and what's left is exhaustion from spending all their energy guarding against ghosts that haven't even arrived yet. They can't just switch the awareness off. That's like asking someone with perfect vision to try seeing everything blurry on command. It doesn't work that way. And honestly, the goal was never to become less aware in the first place. The real shift is learning to stop carrying everything. In therapy, this usually comes down to building emotional boundaries and gently retraining certain thought patterns, learning how to notice something without automatically absorbing it. People who manage to find their way through this usually land on 3 things that genuinely set them free. First, not every silence is a hidden message. If someone replies to a text slowly, maybe they're just tired. If a coworker walks past without smiling, maybe they just have a headache. Learning to stop personalizing every little thing is the first real shift. Second, not every emotion that shows up needs to be solved. Anxiety might appear out of nowhere, and instead of immediately trying to analyze why, they can just notice it. Oh, my heart's beating fast. That's just a sensation. Observe it without judging it. Let it pass on its own. Third, not every insight needs to be said out loud or acted on. They might see someone's insecurity clearly. That doesn't mean they have to fix it or become that person's therapist. They might sense instability in a relationship, and sometimes the healthiest response is simply to quietly step back. Eventually, they start to understand something important. Clarity is only really a gift when it comes with boundaries. Knowing what's actually theirs to carry and what belongs to the world to just leave alone. And when someone actually practices that kind of letting go, something genuinely shifts. The awareness doesn't disappear. It softens. It matures. They still see deeply into people. They still feel the energy in a room the moment they walk in. But they stop getting pulled under by it. They move from using their awareness to predict everything, to using it to simply be present. From fear into curiosity. Instead of quietly deciding whether someone's smile is fake, they just enjoy the sunny afternoon and the coffee in front of them. And life genuinely becomes lighter. Not because the world suddenly got simpler or people became less complicated. The world is still exactly as messy and contradictory as it always was. It becomes lighter because they finally stop trying to carry every single equation of it on their shoulders at once. They can't turn off that light inside their mind completely, but they can change its intensity. They can take it from a harsh spotlight that exposes every flaw in the room and turn it into something more like a candle, bright enough to still understand people deeply, gentle enough to warm themselves too, for once. These are the people who feel things deeply, who think things through completely. So if you ever meet someone like this, someone quiet, someone who seems to be holding something back, understand that it isn't indifference. It's a quiet kind of wisdom, one that's learned slowly how to actually understand life instead of being trapped inside it. If any of this felt familiar, if you saw a piece of yourself somewhere in here, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone in it. The depth you carry isn't a flaw. It's something worth understanding, worth being a little gentler with.